I hope you're all well this morning, or at least better than me. I'm a miserable cold, at least I hope it's just a cold. As I certainly don't want to be going to any doctors. I have seen in the last year how difficult it is for a start to get an NHS doctor's appointment. And it's the NHS I want to talk a little bit about today. Because I tend to sort of auto-record these current affairs programs like Dispatches and Panorama and things. Is Panorama still on? And this morning I had a flick through and I saw one from last week, which was a Tonight program on the NHS winter crisis. And I found an article about the documentary on the net today, and I'll post it when I'm finished. And it says that this year's winter crisis, particularly the pressure on hospital A&Es, has been widely acknowledged as the worst in living memory. People waiting for hours on trolleys in corridors, ambulances queuing up outside hospitals, and consultants writing to the Prime Minister saying that they are experiencing patients dying prematurely. Now, there's a couple of examples given of this, and one was a 95-year-old man who was lying on the floor in his flat for 6.5 hours waiting for an ambulance to come, despite several phone calls to them. Another elderly woman in Brighton was left lying on a pavement, a cold pavement, for 2 hours waiting for an ambulance. And we go through this sort of catastrophe that's occurring in the NHS this year. And there's some staggering statistics coming up from this. And one of them is the number of hospital beds in England. And it says on this article, a key reason for delays appears to be a shortage of beds. Well, yeah. In fact, recent research has found that the total number of hospital beds in England has more than halved in 30 years. So in other words, the NHS is less than half the size it was 30 years ago. And what's happened to the population in that time? What the explosion in population in that time? How can it possibly function? No wonder it's the mess it's in. And the documentary, if you see it, the only cause for this discussed was a growing elderly population. Now, as if, again, elderly people are the problem here. It wasn't discussed that we have 6 figures immigrating to this country every year. It wasn't discussed either that we have chief executives across NHS hospitals on 6-figure salaries and rising, while nurses are leaving at a higher rate than they're joining, while doctors are worked excessively long hours, especially junior doctors, for very little pay, and we're giving 6 figures of taxpayers' money to chief executives, often of failing hospitals. None of this is addressed. It is simply put onto the shoulders of elderly people. And so what kind of society, and we can see it as well with Brexit. Elderly people are to blame for Brexit. No, elderly people saved the country again. You know, this disrespect, what kind of a society leaves the people who built the country, the people who've paid all the taxes that fund the NHS for all these years. You know, these people are left lying on a cold pavement for 2 hours because the hospitals have other priorities, and they're wasting resources, giving 6-figure salaries to chief executives of failing companies. I don't understand how this is happening. I don't understand how we are allowing this to happen. It seems to be a complete breakdown in respect for children. There's a great lack of respect for children as well, and we know how that's been reflected. And especially in the last few days, an enormous disrespect for elderly people. We cannot allow this to continue. And you know, the problem is that it's in every party. Labour have been disastrous on the NHS, particularly with the financing of it. There is no party in Parliament at this moment we can trust with the NHS. So you have to decide really if we still want one, if we still want an NHS. I do. I really do. I still believe in the foundations it was built on. I still believe that people, especially poor people who will of course be hit as hard, shouldn't have the stresses and strains of paying extortionate amounts for healthcare when they get sick. I still believe in the NHS, and I still fully support and want to campaign on it by telling these truths. No one in politics talks about these things. We've got to start speaking plainly and honestly about the state the NHS is in and why. And it isn't the fault of elderly people, without whom it probably wouldn't be there in the first place. Okay, I think I better head. I'm going to be very busy for the next few days. As I said, I think during the week that I'm going to be in Bristol all day on Friday, hopefully putting the final touches to the website. And I'll be, unfortunately, in London tomorrow, so I won't be around for the next couple of days. But I'll be back on Monday, and I hope to have some exciting news, or even the website itself ready to go. That's certainly the plan. So thank you, as always, for your support. More lovely messages of support coming in today, so thank you to you all. And I shall be back on Monday again, hopefully with some exciting news. So take care until then.